everybody. You are listening to ToRAISE Questions Doula podcast. I'm Melanie Headley. I'm sitting here with Thérèse Hakoun, the executive director of ToLabor, which is an international doula training and certifying organization. Shoo, what a mouthful.
I know. Hi, Melanie. How are you?
Hi, Thérèse. Good. How are you? You look great. I love your shirt you're wearing today.
Thanks. It's so comfortable
It
today.
looks comfy.
Well, and you, again, I mentioned this last time, you're so nice and tan and blonde and wearing shorts. It's I'm sitting here not wearing shorts. So we have a good episode today.
I'm excited about this one.
Yeah.
I'm actually really intrigued to hear this story.
Right. We've got a call coming in from Rachel in Arizona who wants to discuss a birth experience that she had very recently and just, review it. And so we're looking forward to doing that. And just want to mention, we're also want to remind you to check out latchmama.com.
Yes.
For all of their products, because they are one of our sponsors. And one other thing I want
really cute nursing wear.
Yes, and lots of information about it on their website. They also have extra large sizes. Just want to put that out
I
there.
saw that.
Yeah,
That's
which
great.
is plus sizes. Which is great because not everybody can wear the same size clothes, and they have very small as well.
Especially right after you have a baby.
You bet. Also, I just want to mention that we have some new workshops coming up. Two are actually, you have to be present here in Richmond. It's a writing workshop, Write Your Birth Story. It's excellent. It's being facilitated by Sarah Allen Short. You can check it out on our website calendar page. You can also, all of you listeners, take it online, July 12th and August 20th, I believe it is. So please take a look at that. If you've given birth yourself and have not written your birth story, this is an excellent opportunity. Also, pass it on to your clients who would probably find it extremely helpful to know that they could write their story and be facilitated through the process in a really powerful way. So,
I love this idea.
Yeah, so check it out on ToLabor.com under calendar and registrations. And we'll get back to you in just a moment. Thanks.
Stay tuned. Rachel, are you there?
Yes, hello.
Hi, Rachel.
Hi, Rachel.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yes, this is Thérèse and
This is Melanie.
Hello.
Hi. We are so glad that you called in, and thanks for writing us. We both really loved reading your email and thought that this would be a really great case study to talk about.
Yep.
So thank you.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, Rachel? How long have you been a doula? Kind of what brought you to do this work?
Okay, I've been a doula for about 3.5 years. I was finishing my undergrad and sort of looking to see what I should do with myself. And midwifery and birth has always sort of lingered in my mind. And I actually met a woman who was planning to be a student midwife and telling her about what I was thinking about, and she encouraged me to look into being a doula. And where I was living at the time, there was a great doula training that focused a lot on volunteer births and serving women in need while they go through their childbearing year. So I got my start there, and as soon as I started, I was totally in love with it, and I've moved around since then and done more trainings and attended more births. I've attended 17 births after this last one.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's been great. I guess I was born at home, so that's where the first concept
wonderful.
of birth entered my brain. But yeah, that's been the journey in the past 3 years.
Well, great.
So
Sounds
you kind
good.
of grew up knowing or believing that birth was normal. I like that.
Yeah, exactly. And exciting. It's not something to fear, something to really plan about and honor as important and get excited about. So always sort of had that feeling about it. And here I am as a doula.
Wonderful.
Really good.
So can you give us some, and the listeners, some information? Let's just start talking about your experience, beginning at the very beginning, that you obviously were hired by a client. And so go ahead, tell us some things about that experience.
Okay. So this woman was an acquaintance of mine. It's actually the first birth, I guess the second, but this is the closest person to me that I've been a doula for. So that was new. So I knew about her pregnancy, and we started talking, and she knew that I was a doula, and so it turned into her wanting me to be her doula, which was very exciting. And this particular situation was interesting because she had been through a sexual trauma in her life, and had been very public about it. So I knew most people in her life, and even beyond that, knew about this trauma. She had written publicly about it. So I knew as a doula who's helped women in need that trauma, especially sexual trauma, could be very affecting in birth. And so it was in the back of my mind that I knew this was a different situation since she hadn't disclosed it to me. I just already knew. So that was the setup. Before even having any prenatal, I already had this very intimate information about her.
Okay.
So we had our first prenatal, and it was great. She's married and been planning the pregnancy and birth for a long time. It was all very positive and exciting, and she was really hoping to have a natural birth but not hung up on it, just very open and calm, and just very nice first meeting and talking about birth and the stages. And she hadn't done any childbirth ed or had very much specific natural childbirth support from her providers or in any other way. So our first prenatal was 3 hours, really long. I mean, we were sort of friends, so it sort of got off track, or just digging in a little bit more, just the whole concept and what it takes and all of that. And I do, as I always do in my first prenatal, sort of bring it up, the fact that trauma, or even not even just trauma, but past life experiences that are difficult can play into your birth, and trying to work those things out ahead of time is really important. And I never ask, tell me what happened to you. I just say, this is something to think about. It would be great if you do have something on your mind to talk to someone who you trust about it. Just get it off your chest, and it doesn't need to be me. It's just something to keep in mind and think about. But this was different since I already knew,
Yeah, but what was her response to that?
Well, she had felt very much like she had worked through it. She had done all the work of, she had held onto it for so long, and then she did this very public thing, and she had done that processing. So I think she understood it would be part of her, but she felt like she had done everything she could do.
And can I clarify that with you? So she did respond to you when you brought up the conversation that you just told us about past life experiences can have an impact. She responded by letting you know that she had the experience, even though you knew about it, that she was acknowledging it?
Yes, she was, and she also acknowledged that it made sense, that there would be a connection.
Okay.
She on the surface, in her brain, her cognitive part of her, it seemed that she really got it, and
right.
That it made sense. It wasn't like she was resisting that idea, but she also felt she's very, emotionally, psychologically aware of herself, and
can I ask you, Rachel, what about her care provider? Had she had a conversation about this with her care provider as well?
Definitely not. She was on a high risk floor. She was a situation that she had gestational diabetes, so they were treating her as if she was high risk, even though it was very borderline and was not insulin dependent at all. But she had a very medicalized team, and by the time she had decided to have me as her doula, she really didn't want to change providers, and where she lived, it's really hard to get midwife late in the game. So her prenatals were like, classic 5 minutes, and definitely nothing. She would not. I know that she would not have felt comfortable or felt like she would have gotten the response she needed if she did bring it up with her providers.
Can I ask, was that suggested to her?
No.
Okay.
It was not by me because of what I knew about the situation. I agree that I don't think she would have gotten the support she needed. I mean, by what she told me about her provider, it wasn't a lot of constructive support, and also the chances of that provider being with her were very slim during the birth. It was like 1 in 10 or something.
Okay.
So that was the situation she was in.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
we did prenatal work. We had conversations about it, and then I'll talk about the birth now if you want.
Sure.
Okay. And so her water broke, and there was no labor all day. We worked it a little bit, walked, cuddled with her husband, all that. I went there in the evening since it was going on 12 hours with the water broken, and just tried to help get things going by doing positions and mild circuit, things like that. Still not much going on, and it had been about 12 hours after the water broke, so we went to the hospital. And they admitted her. And this whole time when we're leaving, I sort of do the thing that I often do when I'm supporting women, just giving them space to process what's going to happen, being like, this is the last time you'll be in your house without your baby. Isn't that amazing? And happy or sad or whatever it is, trying to let things go as early as possible. And so I was doing that kind of thing. And then when we were in the hospital, I was like, how do you feel being in the hospital? You didn't expect this. This is a change in the plan. And, all along the way trying to see if there was something that needed to be talked about or let go of early. And every time it was just met with super positivity and oh no, it's great. Everything is perfect. And I love being in the hospital. I like feeling taken care of, that kind of thing. Just all very positive and lighthearted.
Can I ask this? Her partner, what was their, involvement prenatally, and then, with the conversation about her history, and also their involvement and their support of whatever the birth was intended to look like?
The partner was very, very supportive, very laid back, definitely all about letting his wife take the lead and do whatever she needed to do. It wasn't really hung up on any specific aspect of the birth, was more focused on healthy mom, healthy baby, but respected his wife's desire to have a birth, this particular kind of birth.
Good.
And he was with a conversation about what happened to her, just very, I don't think he said much in particular. He acknowledged the fact that it could have an effect on birth, but I think it was harder for him to totally understand what that meant.
Right, but he had he at least had an awareness of it. It was
oh yeah,
Got
definitely.
it.
And
okay,
he was supportive. Yeah.
Okay, good.
And he was with her every step of the way. He was with her when we went to the hospital, the whole birth, everything. So labor she didn't have labor all night, so we were at 24 hours, water broken, and they started the induction the next day. She didn't actually get any contractions all day long. So we were going on about 30 hours with the water broken, and still nothing. And then,
what were they giving her?
They were giving her Pitocin. Her cervix was already at 3.5 centimeters, 70% effaced, really stretchy and ready to go. We all expected it to happen really fast as soon as the Pitocin hit, but that didn't happen.
But did anybody, what about the baby? Was there any information about the baby?
Yeah, baby was happy. She had heard prenatally that the baby was posterior, so we were doing a lot of work to flip the baby, but when we got there, the baby was high, so I don't exactly know.
Okay, so baby was high, possibly then posterior and
exactly.
A cervix that was ripe and ready, but Pitocin wasn't doing anything. I mean, that just an observation that very well could have been then a posterior position baby that was not allowing the baby to drop down to trigger more on the cervix.
Right, yeah. And this is another interesting detail that I've never seen before. When she was admitted, they said the water had broken, but she still had a pocket of water.
Mm-hmm.
And I never heard of that before as a doula, and that was really interesting. I didn't know if that affects the infection rates or like how long you could stay home, if it's a different rules about that.
Right. Well, and what I'm curious then, since you brought that up, when her water broke, did she continue to have fluid release during the rest of those 24 hours, the 12 hours?
She did. Mm-hmm, and a lot. It was gushing.
Okay.
So I was, I never even imagined it could have been like a trickle or a pocket or anything.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, then my again, observation input to that would be that if that was happening, then that would not necessarily change the 24-hour kind of rule, quote unquote, because if her water had broken, there was a trickle that came out when she thought it happened, but then the rest of the time there was nothing happening. That would say that the baby corked the bag off, or it was just a high leak. Mm-hmm. And there was this lots of pockets of fluid around the baby, and that could be, quote unquote, safer for the baby as far as infection. But this sounds like, I'm not clear on the pocket either, except for that, because I wasn't there, but there's always fluid still around the baby. So maybe they just felt like they felt a bubble that was more pronounced. And but it sounds to me like the amniotic sac itself was really pretty open. Right.
Yeah. I thought so too.
Yeah.
And so the next day when the Pitocin was going, she told me, the water broke again. I was in and out. I lived 5 minutes away, so while she was having no labor, I was encouraging her to just be with her husband and relax and gather energy.
Good.
And she told me that her water broke again, and so I figured that was the end of it. But then it was actually a third time that I did another vaginal exam, and a third pocket broke, and this time there was blood, and there hadn't been blood before. And that's when Pitocin contractions were very serious. And her Pitocin was very high because they'd been upping it consistently because there was no labor. So she got hit with her very first contraction, major contraction. And it just blew. I was there at that point, which is good.
Yeah, which is good.
And it just blew her away and brought her to tears. Just really, really hard to get on top of. And
I'm sure if you go from nothing and then you get a contraction, a Pitocin contraction on top of it.
And it sounds like an active labor contraction.
Yeah.
If you've gotten some blood now and she was already 34.
Right. Starting out, yes. Okay, I can imagine what that must have felt like.
I know, yeah. And they're coming every 2 minutes, and they dialed back the Pitocin a lot as soon as that happened, which is great. We didn't even need to ask. But still, that didn't slow them down. It just meant there was less Pitocin in her body. And she was laboring like that every 2 minutes, really, really hard contractions. Me and her husband were switching, being in the front, looking at her in the eyes, and being behind her, giving counter pressure. But we could not, it was so hard for her to get on top of it, if you know what I mean?
Yes.
Open her eyes and make contact with the outside world and sort of work with it. It was so hard to do that. And it reminded me, on the first few births I attended, I didn't really get that concept of getting in control when things like that are happening, and I had guilt of not being able to guide women through that. But now I know how to do that, but still she just couldn't do it. She couldn't open her eyes. And
she was lost. I call that being lost in the midst of, you're in almost like in the darkness, and you're trying to find you're in the woods, and you're in that darkness, and you're looking up at the trees, and you're trying to find, okay, where's the light? How can I get out of here? But you can't. And no matter how many people are calling your name, you just can't see where you're supposed to go. They're just lost at that moment.
Yeah, it was just like that.
So what happened next?
Well, it was just like that, and it was really just very, very weepy. And I've seen that happen, and I accepted that's necessary, and I helped them just, I guess, cry it all out. Like, we'll move on to the next stage. Like, after we're done crying, then we'll get to work. That's totally okay.
Right.
But it just kind of didn't stop. And then we worked with it. It did get a little better. Like, she realized spontaneously, like, she had to go to the bathroom, and so she was on the toilet, and she came back to sit on the birth ball, and she asked me, she was like, is it possible that it's more comfortable on the toilet? And I was like, yes, that's something we talked about. So, like, we were on the toilet for a while, and that actually did seem to be better. And then we did all fours on the bed when the toilet got, boring and not tolerable anymore.
And all the while, may I ask again, all the while she was still on the Pitocin?
Yes.
And did she
they had dialed it down, but she still had it.
And was she on a telemetry monitor that she was able to do the bathroom and the ball and all that stuff?
Yeah, exactly.
Good.
I guess it's telemetry. It's like they had the fetal monitor, but it was just plugged to a box. And it was. I've never seen that before, and that was actually really great.
Yeah,
and she had a big band around her belly instead of those two little ones, which just made it so much better.
Right, and that's a great
everywhere.
option. Not, unfortunately, all hospitals offer those, and when they do, they usually have very few. And if somebody else is using it, then you're out of luck. Or if the nurses aren't comfortable using that, then you're got to find somebody who is. But yeah, it's a great option for somebody who's on Pitocin to be able to have that mobility, because otherwise they are stuck to the bed or the side of the bed.
It's so important.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Especially as a posterior baby, we were really trying to twist around a lot. So it was great.
Was there any thought about turning the Pitocin off entirely to see if her own body had kicked? Like, was this contractions that also just now were her own contractions and maybe not necessary to be using the Pitocin any longer?
We did not talk about that. At this point, it was, we were about 12 hours into the induction, or 13. And I don't know. I didn't ask, and they didn't ask.
Right. Well, can I, I say this without any means of criticism behind this. This is just because we're using this as a teaching, case study thing for the podcast and for the listeners. It is something that we want to discuss with our clients, especially somebody who is just really having a hard time working with these Pitocin contractions. I mean, it's great that they turned it down, but it seems like she was still having really intense contractions, which may have only been Pitocin, but may have been an indicator that she was really having her own contractions. So it's something we want to say to the client, like, how about you ask them to turn it off just for a short period of time to see if your own body's doing it. Pitocin leaves the system very quickly, usually within 1 minute, and it becomes pretty evident if the contractions continue on, then, and it's a good pattern of contractions, then there's no reason to be on the Pitocin anymore. If after 20 minutes or so they've really spaced out, then it would be an indicator. Either we always still have, like the nipple stimulation, acupressure points, something like that to encourage the oxytocin release, but Pitocin perhaps would be used again. So they're not asking for permission to have it turned off. They're telling them, I'm not giving you permission to give it to me for that moment. But in this birth, there would be potentially more pushback to that from a provider. There always could be pushback from a provider, but that still doesn't matter if your client says, I don't want the Pitocin, I don't give you permission to give it to me for right now. I'm not saying forever, but not right now. Then they have to, discuss that, and unless they can come up for a really good medical reason, they have to respect the wishes of the patient. But in this case, being that it was an induction created by bag of water being so broken for so long, I'm sure there would be more pushback. But nonetheless, it's always an option to put
definitely. I think that also this was a situation of picking our battles, because we were not feeling good even about using the word doula. It was that kind of hospital vibe.
Oh boy!
But yeah, definitely.
Yeah, something to put out there.
I wonder what they would have responded to. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, and who knows? And that's the part also, Rachel, that is the point. We never want to wonder.
Right.
We don't want our client more than anybody to wonder, what if that had happened? What if, and it's not, again, this isn't a criticism because you were there, you were in the situation, you know what the vibe was, you know what the situation was. I'm just putting it out there as, here's one more thing we want in our tool bag. Remember that thought. So she's moving along.
Yeah, so she's moving along, still really in that darkness, as you said. And then it's been about 3 hours of this labor, of this very intense 3 or 4. And she starts wanting to open the talk of the epidural. She wants to start that discussion. So we talk about it, and I talk about how mobility is really important at this point. It depends. It's always important, but especially if your baby's posterior and you're still not super far along, that's going to be important. And so we talk about that. But I am starting to think about this pain versus suffering concept with her, because we haven't really moved away from this. Just it looks like despair.
So was there anything that was helping her cope through the contraction? Was there something that you were saying or breathing or?
Yeah, she was meeting us there every contraction. It wasn't what we were doing. If we weren't there, it would have been worse. She needed the massage on her back, and she needed someone to hold her hands and breathe with her through each contraction. And she was responding to the breathing. She was able to match it, and then right at the peak of the contraction it would turn to the weeping again. But definitely it was helping, but she was just getting exhausted from it.
And had really anybody checked her to see if there had been any change?
They hadn't checked her yet.
Okay.
They hadn't checked her since she started really feeling the labor. It's been about 3 or 4 hours.
Okay.
And they're hesitant to check a lot because of the water being broken. And so we talk about it, and we decide together that, having an epidural at this point would be fine and maybe even helpful. I've seen epidurals relax women, especially women who have been through a lot.
Right.
And with getting to 10 centimeters.
Right.
And also if she was really opening and the baby was low and we talked about it, and we were if you're around 7 or 8, that's a very good, safe decision. But if before that, maybe we could keep working. And she seemed comfortable with that. So we talked to the doctor. The doctor came in, and she checked her, and she was 5 centimeters. So she'd progressed, but not as much as she wanted to have, obviously. And even though we had made a decision together that she felt comfortable with, she wanted to talk to the doctor, which is great. And the doctor, which I expected, this is another regret I have. I wish I had explained to her what the doctor would say, because I knew that she was what do you think about getting an epidural? And the doctor's great choice. Yeah, it'll be wonderful. It's, if you wait too long, you won't be able to get it, that sort of thing. And that was very, very convincing. of course, when you're being told that you won't get it if you wait, so you might as well get it now. And she was very sure about it, and we had another talk, and I told her, I'm like, whatever you do, I'll be with you, and you'll make the right decision. And I just want to say that because she had mentioned the epidural, throughout the thing, just not as seriously as the past 30 minutes or so. And I reminded her, I said, remember when you were asking for the epidural and saying you can't do this 2 hours ago? Then you did it, and then you asked again, and you say, I can't do this, and then you did it for another hour just to really explain that she could, if she decided she could keep going.
Yes.
I've had that conversation before, and it's been helpful, and some people are like, I know, but now I'm done.
Right. Yeah.
And for her, though, she just was crying so much, just crying. Like, I don't exactly know what about, but these things.
That's what I was just going to ask you. Did you get the sense that it was, the obvious is she's in labor. And it's overwhelming, it's that lost, it's the intensity of the Pitocin. But was that your sense that it all was, or was in the back of your mind you were, knowing her history, thinking that was part of it as well?
I was thinking that in the back of my mind, just because I feel like I've been to a lot of really, really hard births, and I've never seen this before. Mm-hmm. So just the difference, even though I've been to labors that were so hard and so long and without an epidural, I've just never seen, like,
this kind of weeping.
The inability to receive, like,
comfort?
Help and do, what'd you say?
Comfort?
Comfort, yeah. Just, like, get to a point after a few hours of, like, getting out of your brain and into your body, and have it be so intense that just accepting it, like, as a whole way through, I could just tell by, like, really, it was just the really intense crying that made it seem like not in her body but in her head. But I don't know. That's just
right. Well, yes, that's how. Yes, and that's what I was asking, because you're the person there, and you're the doula, and I think that has credibility, what you're picking up as well. So, moving forward.
Yes. So she did get the epidural after 4 hours of labor. It's 7:30 p.m. now, so we're going on 36 hours of water breaking, and that's not the baby's super happy this whole time. No temperature or anything for her. And then after 30 minutes, and sometimes epidurals take a long time to sort of fully kick in.
Right.
So she's like, I still feel it, and I'm like, it's normal. It'll start to go away. We'll change sides. And after about 30, 45 minutes, it was kind of clear that the epidural wasn't working.
Oh, God.
It took the edge off, but it didn't, which, a lot of women really want that. They're like, I just want the edge off, and so I could feel everything. But I think she really wanted it to be, like, she wanted to rest and not do it anymore.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we talked prenatally about how, you could turn down your epidural and still feel, and she was excited about it then. So throughout the epidural, like, she had it, she was lying on her side, we were switching sides, and she still had mobility in her legs. We did all fours. Like, it didn't totally take anything away, mobility or sensation. And I was rubbing her the whole time, like, we were still very much in labor. She felt every contraction and needed to be held during each contraction. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And really just and also just still so sad, just like still crying and saying things like, I can't believe I'm having my baby, like all these things that we talked about, like even just back to me saying like, oh, you're not going to, like, this will be the last time you see your cat before you have your baby back in your house, like that kind of thing, which didn't make her feel much at the time, was just so intense at this point. Like, I can't believe I'm going to have him, like, I don't know, so much like head anxiety that
it sounds like
we didn't really get through before.
It's so hard. I just want to interrupt you for a second,
because she was just really
Rachel.
wanting to like cry and be with him, which I think was fine. Like, I kept hoping we would work through that and then move, because I'm thinking about pushing, and how it's going to be really hard to cry a lot and get your baby out, like with energy.
Well, so Rachel, I just wanted to say real quick, I think at this point in the labor, it's gone to a place where, and I've been at births similar, where you do have just the weepy, lots of head anxiety, lots and lots of fear in there, where the labor actually kind of takes on its own entity of, how am I trying to say this? Where the client, the laboring mama, almost gets angry or feels defeated by the labor. Does that make sense? And kind of resents the labor. Do you feel like that was happening at all here?
Definitely, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, she was talking about wanting to have a C-section, like, isn't there another way? I mean, I've heard that before, but, yeah, it was definitely, like, really not excited about this process, which, I mean, it's confusing because these are things that I've seen when I say them, like, with the words. It's like, yeah, this happens all the time to women, especially as they're getting towards 10 centimeters, especially with an induction, but it felt different a little bit. It's just hard to articulate, maybe. And so she progressed, though. I think the thing about the epidural, especially for people who are really in their heads, I see it happen more, that with the epidural, it does relax you and get things going. And so she progressed from 5 to like 8, 9 in maybe 2 hours. And then She felt pressure. She felt the urge to bear down like an hour later. So she got the epidural at 7:30. By maybe 10:30, she was bearing down and she was complete.
Wow, that's an excellent use of the epidural.
Absolutely.
Then, even though it was an epidural that didn't, thank goodness you were there. Thank goodness she had her supportive husband as well. But thank goodness you were there, Rachel, because if that epidural was not doing what she anticipated, can you imagine what would have happened had you not been there, to get her to that complete spot?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, yes, we can only imagine. So she's 10 and now pushing can start?
Yes, and the whole time up to now, because I was really anxious and apprehensive about this medical team, because I had heard that they're really, really high risk and high intervention. So this whole time I've been very nervous, but they've been so hands off, and I was confused by that. They've been really just like letting us do whatever we want and not fussing about anything.
Right.
And, like even putting my Christmas lights up, I felt like they were gonna like shut me down, but not at all. They've been super like hands off to the point of like at this point, like I'm a little confused. So she's 10 centimeters and they're like, I've been in a lot of other births where like, I mean, some more high risk, more highly medicalized practices will start really getting women on the position and being like, do it this way. Or if I'm with midwives, they're like, okay, let's do some practice pushing. Let's see how it goes.
Right.
They didn't do either of that. They were just like,
straightforward.
I don't know if they like thought I don't know what they thought. But she was pushing and bearing down, and the pushing stage is interesting because I've just seen 2 totally different responses. Like some women who have really hard labors, they're like, oh, finally I could do something. Like I feel like this has been happening to me and now I could get this baby out and do something about it. And
take some control back. Yeah.
Yeah. But I would say more have been like, I am so tired and so over this. I do not want to do anything. Like I just don't want to do it. And I never know what to expect, and it's really hard if it's the latter, because, I mean, they have to,
right.
You have to get your baby out.
Right.
And it's hard to know what they need from you, since they have to do it, to get to that understanding that they have to do it. So that's something that's always been hard for me, and it's also often that's when you're with the provider, whether it's the midwife or the doctor, you're sort of tag teaming and following their leads, and the delivery they're going to be there for that and guiding that part of it, whereas you could be alone with the woman most of the labor. So I did feel this is like the part of birth that I feel the most like I don't know how to lead, or help give guidance towards, since the doula is not usually the one doing that. So I felt a little without the skills I needed here, because we were just alone in the room, and I was like, just do what your body will do, and she was bearing down. And it was about an hour, and then I wanted to see if anything was happening. And, just because there was no one there and no one checking in on us, which was really surprising to me. And then I was like, okay,
it really is. What? This is so interesting, only because when we asked you early in the conversation about, discussing with the care provider about the sexual trauma in her past, it was like, well, these are not those kinds of doctors. And here, I wonder if there was this misinterpretation that you were more like a midwife there and they were doing hands off, or it's just curious.
But even then, it's like, why were they that's
exactly,
not
absolutely,
absolutely. Let a midwife just randomly deliver a baby.
And a person who's had their water broken for 48 hours.
Yeah. It's been 40. It's on 48 almost. Anyway, it's been about an hour and a half, and I don't want her to get exhausted if what she's doing isn't effective and she does need something else. So I go out and I'm like, okay, she's been at 10 for an hour and a half. Like, what are we doing? So I talk to the nurse comes in, and the first thing that the doctor comes in as well. And the first thing she says when she checks her is, so according to the doctor, she has no idea what we've been doing this whole time, for all she knows, we haven't been pushing at all. The first thing she does when she checks her is like, your baby's still really high. Like, it's really possible the baby just won't fit. It's her very first vaginal exam since she's been at 10, which was a while ago, but I don't know what kind of pushing we've been doing, that's not my job to be looking at her down there.
Just to clarify, you started pushing because she felt pressure and she was complete, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was like, she was feeling the urge, and then the nurse came in and checked her, and she was complete. Yeah.
Okay, but the baby was up high. Still
high. And so we did some push, and that was that's so hard to hear, especially someone who's trying to get out of her head. So that was really disappointing to hear that kind of, I don't know if it's a mistake to say that sort of thing. And so we pushed together, and, that doctor was really all about the, push, keep going, get angry, all of that. She was also, I think she was a resident, so it was new to her, so it was kind of clear, the energy was sort of slightly uncertain with her, and even from her very first comment about being like, I don't know if the baby will fit, there was this sort of, a doubt with her, and, just, to keep explaining the vibe in the room. The whole time the mother is still just sobbing, just weeping. This is continuous. And then they get this other doctor to come in to help, and he's clearly the hot shot of the floor, just handsome, and everyone smiles at him. This had such a vibe. And he walks in, he's like, okay, we're going to stop crying. Okay, we're done with that. I'm going to do this now. You got to listen to me. It's just really that kind of energy, which as a doula, you're just this is, I don't know, not what we talked about wanting, and definitely not a doula vibe, but it was so I don't know, complicated, because it just worked. He was so what she needed. She really, or wanted, I don't know, she wanted someone who was going to say, we're doing it my way, listen to me and I'll tell you what to do. Stop crying, let's start joking around about, your baby being I don't know, having a funny hairdo when he comes out, talking really, lighthearted, and
she needed some levity in the room.
That was just what she needed, and when he was there, she was pushing, and baby was he was slipping in and out, but coming, and, everything seemed fine, and there's just lots and lots of energy in the room, and energy meaning, a lot of yelling and kind of intense, people really saying, like, get angry, you know, like that was actually what was being said, which I've never even seen before, but I've heard about.
And the whole time, is she kind of reclined? Is she flat on her back? What position is she in?
So when it was just the two of us, she was on her back, on her side, with one of her legs really high up, so really open pelvis, and her tailbone lifted off the ground. And that's when the woman checked her as well. She stayed in that position. But then when the other doctor, I'll call him like the hotshot doctor, comes in, they get the whole lithotomy out and get going in that position. So but it was it wasn't the worst lithotomy. It was like her whole upper body was sort of supported. And, like very forward. She was definitely not flat on her back.
Which is a very common position in the hospital. Births is not, we see either fully flat, or which we try and avoid, or a more upright position, but still on their back, but more on their lower back than their full upper back.
And what about her legs? Was she using stirrups? Was she able to grab behind her knees?
They had, like, it was, I guess they're called stirrups. It was like these parts of the bed that came up that fully supported her whole calf that were like soft.
Yeah,
those are stirrups. They're just the new fashioned stirrups. Yeah,
exactly. So
I hate those things.
Definitely in like a lithotomy, but like her back was, her upper body was like curling around her belly.
Right. Okay. So she's pushing, and then did she birth?
Yes, she birthed. So this whole time though, it was hard also that she was just not resting in between contractions. The whole time she was like just really tense, her shoulders, her hands, her wiggling around like in between. It was, the labor was, the pushing was really hard to sort of get in the rhythm about. But yeah, with him there, I think she was complete at 10. The doctors came in around midnight, and then she had her baby just past 1 a.m., and it was a shoulder dystocia with a nuchal cord.
Oh, boy.
Ooh. So they put her back really flat, you know, the whole shoulder dystocia thing, and it was so hands-on, the whole pushing part. You know, they had their hands inside of her while she was pushing, and just so many hands doing so many things for that period of time. And then, she birthed her baby after that, and baby straight to the chest, really happy, crying a lot. The baby was totally fine, and she had 2 small tears, which after all of the hands-on...
Yeah, it's pretty good, huh?
I was pretty surprised, small tears. And then for the placenta, she said, I was just taking pictures and being with her, and then she said, "Ow, what are you doing?" And they were doing some cord traction, but I don't know, I've never heard a woman say "ow" before. You know, that sounds like
they're pulling.
Pretty vigorous cord traction, yeah. And she did bleed a lot after the placenta came out. And they did like an internal manual sweep with external pressure as well to stop the bleeding. From the whole labor was just me and her and her husband. And then as soon as pushing and then placenta and then, you know, recovery, it was just all hands on deck and really, really a lot going on.
And very aggressive.
Very aggressive.
Yeah.
So that's the birth story.
And then her recovery as far as emotionally, what has she conveyed to you? Well,
for the first while, the baby latched, but not like really vigorously latched at first, but did latch. So I knew that things were okay. Her nipples were good for the baby and all of that. So I went home, and then the next day, she hadn't put him to the breast since I left at like 3 a.m, and I got back at like 11 a.m. So I was really surprised that none of the postpartum nurses had helped her know to do that. Like when the baby had woken up, the husband just comforted the baby. I was surprised that no one had sort of helped her with that. I mean, it was good that she slept, I guess, but still, that really made it hard to start breastfeeding. So for the first postpartum period, it was really a lot of stress about breastfeeding because the milk didn't come in until like day 7, and she was getting a lot of pressure from the nurses to formula feed and all of that, and she didn't know what to do. So the focus was on that for the first while because it was really stressful, especially after like not going into labor on her own and then the milk not coming in on its own. A lot of it was focused on being like, oh, it's just
how was it emotionally for her? I mean, we were
Well, the focus was so much on the baby at that point, and then after, it's only been a few weeks, and we've been talking, and it's just all happy. Like everything is perfect. My baby is perfect. I'm as happy as I can be. I'm so happy that I'm a mother.
Good.
Just great. And really not interested in like the birth was really, really hard. It's hard for her to.
Did she talk about that at all? Did you? I mean, like in postpartum, sometimes I say things like, "How do you feel about how everything went?" Or like a very open, leading question. So how did she respond to that?
She says it was like she thought of it as like going through hell, like it was awful. That's how she feels about it. But she's so happy that it worked, like everything was fine, but not able to. Like she feels like it was really hard, and now it's over.
Okay.
Not really thinking that it'll affect anything else, or it's not affecting anything else right now. So she's not really interested at this point in delving deeper, and I feel like I want to help do that, but I don't know how without pushing my feelings.
Right.
Well, and so what are your feelings about it?
Because unfortunately, we're going to have to start to wrap this up soon, and we don't want to miss out on anything. So, what is your? I mean,
how do you feel about how everything went?
How everything went.
I mean, I feel like. I don't know, I just feel like so full of questions. Like, I wonder if it was just a hard labor, and then hard labors happen, or if there was something more. And then I also wonder more specifically, like for my future practice, of like, how can you better help someone get there earlier?
So,
like what can you do more than just, I don't know, more than what I did to sort of open, especially people who are very like, what they consider level-headed and moderate and maybe like academic, who are not as interested in exploring the hard emotional stuff.
Well,
like how do you do that?
Well, I think this is my input right off the bat. I think what you did with them was just beautiful. I mean, I think how you were able to help them her go through this experience, which was it was long, it was really hard, it was medically a induced labor. She had to labor with that Pitocin throughout. She had this background. The weeping very well could have been a part of that, but very well could have just been she was just lost in labor, and it was just so intense, and maybe there were subconscious, conscious flashbacks to pain and suffering that she had in her previous history. But what you did was you held that space the whole time and made it safe and helped her remember that she was having a baby and that progress was happening, but also that she could have help and support with the epidural, which did benefit her, even though it didn't benefit her to the degree she anticipated. It brought her closer to her baby. It gave her enough lack of sensation with your support to be able to move forward. And then when it came to the pushing part, and you being left alone, which could happen again, which isn't as likely, but you can be in the room when somebody starts pushing and nobody else is even aware of it. The baby being up high, ideally what would have been best maybe is that if the epidural had really been working to not just give her feelings of pressure but not like pain, if the nurse had noted that the baby was way up high, that she would have just let her rest during that time.
And
just
labor down.
Yeah, and labor the baby down, so that she could have had a resting phase created by the epidural, and allowing the uterus to catch up, allowing the uterus maybe to push the baby further down on its own. And then as it got, even if it was 1 centimeter lower, the baby, then maybe she could have started participating. But the lower she could have gotten it before everybody jumped in. But then that didn't happen. And you were trying to help guide her when it's hard to guide somebody who isn't feeling full sensation, but you were doing what you thought was right. And I think it sounded right. But in the end, I have to say, when the doctor came in and changed the whole dynamic and said, okay, we're getting serious here now, it was appropriate. It was, and that's sometimes the role of the doula, is to say, we've tried this, but now guess what? You got to get firm with them in a very loving, you don't have to be the aggressive, like it sounds like that setting was, but more of, the only way this is going to happen is you're going to have to push long and hard. And everybody in our community is against purple pushing, but there is a purpose in not purple, but in long, extended, forceful pushes to get, especially a first baby, especially a baby who's up high, especially somebody who's lying in a more supine position, especially somebody who's got an epidural. You have to work really hard, but that can be with somebody who is unmedicated as well. And to take the focus off of the weeping, which if she couldn't have done it, she would have continued weeping, no matter what anybody said to her. So it's not, Rachel, that you did anything wrong. It's using it as an example of what can, like you said, you were asking it when you were describing it, and then talking about it in hindsight. Sometimes we just have to, in labors overall, just get in their face and say, nothing's going to feel good. We just got to move forward with it.
Yeah. And then, just what ToRAISE said, that you held the space for her in labor, you're also going to do that postpartum.
Right.
And which you've already done by not pushing her to delve deeper, but just by being there and being, present for her in, this next year, and not just checking in, just saying, thinking about you. How's that sweet baby? Just by, being a part of her life if she ever needs to reach out to you again. Yeah,
because it could be, when she told you prenatally that she knew it could be related to her birth experience, the upcoming birth experience, her trauma, but she didn't feel that it probably was a significant. I mean, that's my understanding. She had processed it. She had put it out there in the world. She had planned this. She had done everything. And so maybe she really had. And that's, it's something that I talk about in workshops, which you probably heard me say when you attended, was not everybody who has sexual abuse in their history will have a bad birth experience. And we shouldn't assume that. We should be very cognizant of that as a correlation potential, but not necessarily a causation of something that has to get delved into deeper. And you have made an open door for her. And you continue, just like Melanie said, to do that. If anything comes up, anything you want to talk about the birth, about anything, the pregnancy, the birth, the postpartum, I'm always available, even when your relationship as far as professionally ends. And because there is that possibility still that something could come up, but the fact that she is happy and it's been a few weeks is a good sign. But not necessarily, we know things can creep in later on. But that the breastfeeding was a struggle, but she got it under control, because we know in postpartum sometimes women can have, who've got trauma in their history, can have issues with breastfeeding and because of it reminding them of the abuse or whatever the circumstances were. But it seems like that got worked through. And and for you, I think, I think this is you've had experience, plenty of it with 17 births. You know that each birth is going to give you questions or going to give you affirmations or both. And this one gave you, I want it to, and I think you already have it, but I want it to give you lots of affirmation for the importance of your presence and the work that you do. And then the questions it gave you, I think, are more about, this isn't about me. This is about her. I've really got to go back to what she is telling me and believing that's what it is. Leave that door open and move on to your next experience.
Yeah.
What do you?
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it did leave me with more questions and affirmation. Like when I left, I was just like, whoa, what was that? You know?
Yeah.
But especially since she's given me so much affirmation, and that's a struggle I have too. Like when really hard births are like attributed, like I couldn't have done it without you, you know? Like that's so not what a doula's goal is, to hear that. So just trying to like really just believe her truth that she's
That's it.
happy and that I'm here for her and she knows that really well, that I'm here for her always.
Yeah, and that's what we do, and then we allow it to trickle out of our body. We hold a memory of that experience because it's precious, it's sacred, it's special, and for learning experiences in the future, but then we move on. You just move on.
Because it is essentially their birth.
It is. And so it sounds like you did a wonderful job.
You really did.
And I think it is a really good story, though, for our listeners to have heard how it was negotiated and how things can be. She was considered high risk, being the gestational diabetes, which is a whole nother conversation. But the 48 hours worth of bag of water broken and nobody making an issue really about that. She ended up with the vaginal delivery. She and
she canceled 2 inductions because she was post-date, and she was like, I'm not ready.
So there was so much healing probably in the whole process that there may not be much healing that was required to begin with. And yeah, the process itself is that power. I made these choices, and against all odds, I did this. And I not only did it, but I brought forth life. I didn't die. I gave life. So I appreciate you taking the time to call us, Rachel from Arizona. And you take care, and call us again if you have any other questions.
Okay, thank you so much. That really helped.
Okay.
More than you can know.
Well, wonderful.
Thank you.
Take care. We'll talk to you again.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Wow, that was amazing.
Yeah, I think it was a good story, and I hope that what Rachel walked away with was she did a great job, and all the things that we said there at the end is something I think is really important for all attending births. It's not our birth experience, and how to release it afterwards
and I
is
think
so
she's
important.
in such a place with being this birth number 17
Right.
that, she'll get there.
Yes.
I feel like 20 was a big,
Turning
transition.
point.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so hard because every birth is so special and you hold it so dear.
Right.
But then the more that you do, the more you see that
and I think
you can't hold on to each one.
And I think, and we didn't really address this with her, like she said, this was the second birth she had done with somebody who she was more familiar with.
Right.
It wasn't just a client. And we didn't
That's
address
tricky
that.
too.
Yeah. But I think it doesn't matter. You still have to let go. So do you have a tip today?
I do. So it just kind of pertains to what we talked about with the use of Pitocin.
Mm-hmm.
And you went into talking about, turning the Pitocin down or
Off, right.
in labor. And that's something that I think is really important to have that conversation with your client prenatally.
Absolutely.
So when you are talking about PIT or Pitocin, I try to remember to convey 3 big questions for the client to remember around Pitocin. 1, what is their monitoring policy like with just they're monitoring structure. So we know that if they're on PIT, they have to be continuously fetal monitored.
Right.
What kind of monitoring system do they have? Is it wireless? Are they able to move around? Are they able to get in the tub? What kind of comfort measures are they able to use while on Pitocin?
It's such a great question.
That's the first one. Then the second is if their body does respond really well, and usually what they're looking for when they are trying to get them into a good labor pattern is that 2 to 3, 1, contractions are 2 to 3 minutes apart and they're lasting for about a minute long. So that kind of equals a good labor pattern. So that is what they're looking for. If we get there quickly, can we turn it down? And then thirdly, if they're there and maybe even, now we're looking at potential hyperstimulation or that they're not coping well.
Right.
Contractions are right on top of each other, super, super strong. Then can we turn it off?
Yeah. And again, can I just interject?
Yeah.
It's not can we. It's I want you to.
I want you to.
Because can you gives them the option, the care. Unfortunately, so many nurses will say, no, we can't.
Well, this is why I like to do it prenatally.
Well, that's what I mean.
So that they can have this conversation prenatally as well with their care provider.
Right.
So
but
they're asking about the use of
exactly.
Pitocin.
Yes. Okay. Prenatally. But that then clarify with them prenatally that they should say, I want it turned off.
Right.
Okay.
Well, that's, I'm always about making sure they're with the right provider.
Right.
And so by asking those questions prenatally, what are your policies around the use of Pitocin? So if they ask those questions and they say, no, we don't turn it down, we don't turn it off, then is it the right fit?
Right. And that's a great tips.
Okay. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
listening,
Thanks.
everybody.
And thanks again, Rachel.
Bye-bye.